Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about the Torchwood Series 3, Children of Earth, written by Russell T Davies, John Frey and James Moran, and is directed by Euro Lynn. This is the big one. This is one of the biggest events, not in just Doctor Who, but one of the biggest events in Doctor Who history. Seriously, I'm not joking. This is an event like nothing you've ever seen before. This is completely different to a previous series. Russell T Davies came in to completely showrun the series now after Chris Chibnall had basically sort of quietly run the show in the past two series, and Russell T Davies wanted to shake things up. Instead of having your 13 episodes, each being individual episodes, with the last two episodes kind of being a two-parter of sorts, he decided to make it one long mini-series story event. So all 5 episodes, because this is only 5 episodes, of Series 3 was one story. The Children of Earth, this massive event. And the reason for this was mainly because the viewing figures of Torchwood were lowering down. So basically Russell T Davies wanted to kick things up. He also brought his Doctor Who director, his well-known Doctor Who director, Euro Lynn, into the franchise. So this is much more connections behind the scenes to Doctor Who than previous seasons. And so, yeah, I mean, in terms of popularity, this is not only one of the best stories in Torchwood by considered basically everyone, that this is easily the best. There's no comparison. We've had some great stories in the past. Countryside. Countryside's the only one that's coming into my head at the moment. Of course, there have been Out of Time. That's another good one. I keep thinking of Series 1. I don't know why. Adam, Meat, Sleeper. Those are some really good ones. But I think everyone, or at least a majority of people, can agree that Children of Earth is the best story. Now, I'm going to be talking about this story a bit differently to how I usually present these vlog series, where I basically go follow the story and then just talk about things I like and dislike throughout the adventure, because it's 5 parts long. If we did that, we'll be here all day. But before that, this is the official BBC cover, which is really nice. I love the silhouette of the children in the clouds there. It really feels like that. The scariness of innocence being taken away from the children, which does actually play heavily into this story. And I think this is a story which you couldn't do in Doctor Who or the Sarah Jane Adventures. No way! This is a story which can only work in Torchwood. But anyway, that's the official BBC cover, and I've printed out my own Region 2 classic cover. I can't remember if I made this or not. Going by the font on the text, let's put it together first. Ready? 1, 2. There you go. So this is what it looks like when it's in my shelf. I can't remember if I put this together. I don't remember adding a photo. Maybe I've taken that somewhere. But the font is not the official font of it, and it looks like something that was in Word or in Photoshop or Pixlr. So I don't know. I can't remember. And so, yeah, very strange. And you also got some really nice imagery there. I've just discovered, I was learning this, I have an audio book on this. Torchwood Into the Shadows audio clip, read by Ewan Miles. So, yeah, 5 parts long, one of the biggest events in the series. And I think what makes this story so global is that, of course, it takes itself outside of Cardiff. We get to see a lot of politicians, we get to see a lot of the world events, and we get to see a lot of how the government reacts to aliens. As essentially, the first episode, them first few minutes are terrifying. This is probably one of, if not the most scariest story in the Doctor Who canon. The story starts off in Scotland, 1965, and we see a bunch of kids being taken away into a light, being escorted by some stranger, some man. And then when it cuts into modern day, seemingly unnoticeably by most people, kids just start standing still and just seemingly cannot move. And first of all, it doesn't seem to have any sort of effect. Nothing seems to be nothing's going wrong. It's just lots of kids being frozen. But just that imagery of just children just staying there and all in this comatose state. It's just that concept alone is terrifying. The fact that some sort of alien entity, some sort of creature can just take the freedom, the control of all children on planet Earth. And essentially we get to see a lot of globe hopping, but we get to see the government's point of view of this. And we get introduced to one of the main characters of the story, John Frobisher, played by Peter Capaldi. Yeah, he's in Torchwood. And in fact, he's a very prominent character here. You could even argue that he's the main character, as it's essentially his story and how he interacts with what's going on. Essentially, he's a government official, and he's essentially as well Torchwood's connection to the government. He's the one they talk to when they need to talk to someone higher up, like the Prime Minister or someone. And so he is quickly informed by UNIT about this whole incident with the children, and Torchwood at the start of this, because we see Gwen heading into the hub after having a nice day with Reese out. She sees that this on the monitor of the kids, but takes no word of it. It's just some sort of strange little moment as Jack and Yanto have a fun little adventure on their own where they track down a hijacker, a creature which actually takes the form of someone's lung and basically makes them horny to death or something like that. And this one of the NHS doctors sees this and tries to push himself into Torchwood. Essentially, they basically tease this character up as a replacement for Owen, because this story, from the concept of Torchwood, takes place, of course, right after the events of Absent Friends, when Toshika and Owen died. And you can kind of get that feeling in the first episode as Gwen, Jack, and Owen, Yanto, sorry, it's just them in the base. There's no one else. It's just these 3 people now. They're the only surviving members. And then right off the bat, the events just started shifting from it's kind of a little nuisance to, oh my god, this is a president matter. This is something that's global, and this is something which is terrifying, as every kid in the world stops, but this happens at like daytime, so a lot of people, especially in the UK, notice this. It's around school times, like a bunch of kids in this play area just stop still, with a lot of parents start crying at their children as they just freeze in the spot and notice that every other child is doing it, and they all in unison say we are coming. We are coming. And so it's off the pot. You can't hide that now. This is a national threat, and Britain has seemingly had some sort of connection with this before. It's quickly established that the events from 1965, that was something which is being connected to now with all of these children. This is something to do with a wavelength, a signal known only as the 456. A creature that lives, that has come to Earth once before and seemingly wanted 12 children at the time. And now it has come back, and it seems to have some sort of control over the human children. All the human children and one man. A man who, his name is lost to time, but it turns out that when he was a kid, he went by the names Clem MacDonald. I can't remember what his name was when he was an adult in the asylum. And so Gwen sees the video of him basically talking in unison with the children. He seems to be in some sort of elderly, I don't know if he's in like some sort of asylum, but he's in some sort of care. So Gwen goes to visit him and try to see what his connection is with the entity, with it. Whilst John Frobisher basically learns that this is to do with an event to happen with the British government with the 456 previously before. And knowing that essentially nothing is going to stop this thing. They are basically have control of humanity and they can do whatever they want. Basically realizes that anyone connected with this is basically a liability. So he orders the death of 3 individuals, 2 names which are meaningless to us at the moment, but one of them is Captain Jack Harkness. And so as basically the entire world is revolving around this, the investigation of the children and the torture, to trying to look deeper into this, the government go after Torchwood, and essentially we quickly learn that the Doctor character, he was actually working for this government. He was supposed to infiltrate Torchwood. However, the leader of this small group of government soldiers led by Agent Johnson, they kill Jack. Obviously, he can't die. He gets revived. This story does a great job at utilizing Jack's immortality. Honest to God, we get a lot of great scenes with it. One of them is coming up now. Essentially, they plant a bomb inside of Jack so that when he wakes up, he wakes up by the body of the Doctor character, and so Jack thinks like somebody had come to like kill him and not realize that Jack is an immortal. And so on the other end, we have Gwen talking to Clem MacDonald. And can I say, the portrayal by Paul Copley is absolutely heart-wrenching. This person who's clearly got some scars under his eyes, he's seen something and he seems to be sort of connected with the children, and in a way there's some sort of, there's something wrong with him. He seems to smell that Gwen can tell the truth, and he has this kind of another sense. Maybe he's a telepath, like that woman in the Planet of the Dead. Who knows? That's a good question. What happened to all the telepaths in the Doctor Who canon when this has happened? And so Gwen tries to get some information about him and basically learns that he is one of these kids that in 1965 was, you know the drill. But he also reveals to Gwen that she's pregnant, which stuns Gwen. And she, at first, has no idea what to feel about this. She isn't exactly confident on being a mother. We see in a scene earlier on where Reese basically teases the idea of having children, and she clearly isn't comfortable with this conversation. She tries to get him off the topic as they're moving house, and this kind of story revolving around children really basically puts her on the edge. And so she goes to the torture hub and scans herself and realizes that she's actually pregnant. Jack puts his hand on the scanner and then reveals that he has the bomb, and so he quickly evacuates the base with just him in the base, and the bomb blows up, destroying Torchwood 3. The hub is now destroyed. That's a pretty big... That's the cliffhanger to part 1. That's what we're dealing with. As part 2 basically sees our team on the run, as we get to see Yanto has no idea what to do. Jack... Oh, I forgot to mention as well. In this story, it's revealed that Jack actually has a daughter. And that his daughter has a son. So Jack's a grandfather to this young boy, Alex. And we see this dynamic, especially when Jack basically needs to track down a child so that they can basically monitor the events, which does lead into some really funny dialogue, personally, where we just have a bunch of people, a bunch of full-grown men, seriously turn around to other people and go, "Find me a child, any child, just find me a goddamn child." I will admit that's probably immature of me, but I always laugh at that, especially when Peter Capaldi says it. It's like, I imagine his doctor turning around to someone and is like, find me a child so I can kidnap them and take them around the TARDIS. Sorry, that's really funny. They say it all the time. It's really funny. But essentially this creature activates again and tells basically the children that he is coming tomorrow. Which is very odd because the story takes place the episode titles take place in 5 days. Episode 1 is called Day 1, which is a bit confusing because there's already a Torchwood episode called Day 1, but we'll forget about that for the moment. Got Day 1, Day 2, Day 3, Day 4, Day 5, because each episode aired back to back to back, on a day from the 6th to the 10th of July 2009, which, funny enough, that means that one episode aired on my birthday. So that's really cool stuff. So the Torchwood team basically trying to figure out what they're going on. Frobisher's new secretary, I can't remember her name, but essentially she's this new girl and she's kind of curious about Torchwood. She's never heard of Torchwood before, and she kind of gets the impression that Frobisher, one of the other secretaries basically gives her password and code, which gives her a really high status, and she uses that to basically look through her emails and learn that John Frobisher has basically ordered the execution, a kill order, to kill Torchwood, to kill Captain Jack, like planting the bomb and things. So Agent Johnson is working directly for Frobisher, and they basically gather all of his remains and put them into a secret base to try and see if he gets revived from that. And the Torchwood, the reason why the Torchwood hub was destroyed was because it was believed that the rift in Cardiff's timeline, that has something to do with Jack's resurrection. It has something to do with his with him being basically an immortal. But that doesn't seem to happen, as Jack basically revives himself from this. And basically part 2, John Barrowman isn't in it. So the Torchwood team basically try and get him out as he's basically reviving. We get this really horrible scene where they open a bag and he's this like gluts. Like you could see like his teeth, he has no gums, he has no like outer skin. He's just all like muscle. But before that, he was literally just an arm, a leg there. He was basically in bits. So that basically confirms that not only is this corpse Jack, but they failed into stopping his resurrection. So we get this really horrible moment where Jack is like completely naked. So you get to see John Barrowman's bits, if you really want to see them. And Agent Johnson fills the entire cell in cement. And remember, Jack can't die, so he must be at least some sort conscious when he gets put in the concrete. That must be absolutely horrible. That sounds like a fate worse than death. Being in essentially a very claustrophobic coffin forever. And that's basically them trying to shut him up to try and tell him why they're trying to kill him, whilst basically something is coming after the children. So John Frobisher, which yes, named Frobisher, like the Doctor Who talking penguin companion. So there's this sort of headcanon that this character is actually Frobisher, taking human form. Wouldn't that be nice? And yeah, as I say, the story is mainly focused on him. He's essentially the main character here. He has the dealings with the 456. He's basically, we see his point of view and how he links with the 456, and how basically he's the one that the government go through to talk to the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister basically uses him as an scapegoat. So if something goes wrong, it all goes all the blame gets thrown at Frobisher. And it's really strange because despite him being a very horrible character, he tries to kill the Torchwood team just to shut people up. And essentially he is not willing, but he is considering the idea of letting the children be kidnapped in this present day. But the story does a great job at making him feel so relatable, that the situation he gets put in is so overwhelming, is so, like, he is so over his head, that, like, what else was he supposed to do? I mean, obviously there are a few things he could have done, but in terms of the context of in narrative story, what could he have done? He's basically a fish, in a tiny fish in a really big, empty environment. They do such a fantastic job. We see his wife, and we see that he has 2 daughters, meaning that he has a personal connection to the stakes in this story, and his children are the ones affected. There's this really heartbreaking moment where I think it's like the second time that all the children start speaking in unison. He's literally just shouting at his kids to stop, and he collapses to the floor. Capaldi, man, his performance is absolutely stunning. But by the end of episode 3, after the torturer team have basically gone on a run and have become basically fugitives from the government as they try and find out why the government are trying to shut them up and trying to stop them from helping the events of these children. And so, whilst they're doing that, in part 4, the cliffhanger essentially for part 3, is that the 456 comes down to Earth, to a specific point in Britain, as it speaks to Frobisher in this like gas cage, as they basically an ambassador to each other. And Frobisher basically, when nobody's looking, tells the creatures like it would make best for everyone's interest if the event of you being on planet Earth before in 1965, that kept silent, that nobody else apart from me and you know about those events. Keep it confidential, and the creature agrees, but only if he gets an audience, a high audience, and asks for like demands and stuff. And so they essentially do, and we have this small group of elected officials and politicians and stuff basically interacting with the 456 as all the children point to Britain. All children on the earth point to England, point to London, to the Ten House. Which then begs the question, for children on the other side of the planet, do they point down? So, yeah, there's just so much good to talk about. I can't stress how great this story is. Like, when the torture team, basically Gwen interacts with the secretary character, and she basically befriends them, and Gwen gets her to wear these contact lenses which act as cameras, and they're undetectable. They're basically a visual for the torture team to get involved in the action and see what the government are after, what the government want. And we learn that the 456 wants a gift. I love that there's this really strange atmosphere with the 456. The 456 is voiced by Simon Poland, and he does a fantastic job at giving this creature this sort of presence, despite us not really getting a good look because it's in this cage which is just full of gas, because seemingly that's what this creature breathes. And it has this like really strange way of speaking. It's very simple, sometimes very direct, sometimes it's very confusing on what it's saying, sometimes it just comically kind of repeats what other person is saying, as if this thing has a consciousness, but it's not in a way that humans understand it. And it has this overwhelming presence, and it basically wants 10% of the children population of Earth. It wants to kidnap, it wants the government to basically hand over 10% of its children. And the government but they consider it, because this creature basically explains that if you don't get 10% of these children, it will kill everybody. It will kill all life on Earth due to this deadly virus. And we have probably one of the most tense scenes in which all of these government officials, they're in the MP room, and they're actually discussing this, and the torture team can watch this because of the secretary character. She's viewing this as they slowly start to consider how they're going to organise the 10%. And it just makes you feel sick. And it's so realistic as well. You can really see actual... If this event happened, you can actually see our government doing this, where it's like, to make it fair, we'll just pick we'll just pick kids at random, or we can't do that. We'll have to pick the schools at random. And like a few of them are like, no way, we're not having my kids being randomly selected. And then when it's agreed by the Prime Minister, it's like, okay, everybody in this room, their kids are free from being taken. And then they're like, what about our cousins? What about our nieces and nephews? And when like the argument starts heating up, one of them actually offers a sort of solution where they get the 10% schools of the lowest level schools, the ones that don't give out hugely successful individuals, and basically put them up to the slaughter. Right, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this all in one video, so I'm going to end it here, and I'm going to talk about the rest of the story in part 2. Yes, I do apologise, but I've literally, we're gone past the half-hour mark, and there's so much I want to talk about. So join me for part 2, where we talk about Children of Earth and just why this story is so fantastic. So join me next time for part 2.